Hey Lee,
Hey, James.
I wanted to take a moment and just tell you kind of the background of how I've gone this direction in um, understanding God and the things of Christianity.
Yeah.
Um, and bottom line, it was just that there were too many things about Christianity that, to me, don't work. They
Mm-hmm.
don't make sense. And so after years of struggling to please God and to do the right thing and to, I tried all of them. I mean, I was a Baptist once, I was Presbyterian, I was Methodist, I was Episcopalian, I was charismatic, I was Word of Faith. I mean, just go on. I gave each one of them. I mean, I've been around for, decades. So I've had time to spend a number of years in each one, not just flighting from one to the next, but just giving my best because they said they had the answer, and so I
Mm-hmm.
would give my best for years, and then I just finally would say, "Wait a minute, you know what? This is just religious gobbledygook, and it's just demanding, and it's asking things of me that I want I want a God that I can trust and that who loves me. And I never particularly felt loved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so to me, too many things about Christianity just don't work. They don't make sense. And I'm talking about the Christianity that I heard preached for years.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to rethink the faith because
Mm-hmm.
I looked in the Bible and I saw so many things that were inconsistent and so many things that people would say. If you said to a lot of Christians there's an inconsistency or there's a contradiction, they would freak out. I mean, it just
Yeah.
can't be that
Right.
God made a mistake. It can't be that God didn't tell the truth. And
Mm-hmm.
I began to realize, well, wait a minute. We're not talking about God here. We're talking about man's interpretation of what God said. We've got
Mm-hmm.
the Greek, and there was a big, and I guess it's probably still going on. I don't pay attention to it, but there used to be a great argument about, what language did Jesus speak, and what language was the Bible really written in? And I mean, I've heard people say that the whole thing was written in several different languages and then combined. It's like I just it crosses my eyes. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do it. You know, I believe the Greek is God's word, and the problem is not the Greek. The problem is those people who translate and interpret the Greek, and they're all going to interpret based on what they already believe. It's impossible not to. And
Mm-hmm.
so somebody can say, well, I'm reading the Bible literally and I'm giving you a literal translation. I can tell you it's not. And there's probably people listening to this, there's no one that's ever read a literal translation, including Greek scholars that are listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're reading something that they have interpreted the Greek from based on what they know. And
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing, and so I it was really troubling to me because I wanted to know God. I needed to know God, and
Mm-hmm.
I felt like there was nothing out there after decades that was really bringing me any closer to God. In my own thinking. Now, other people can feel totally different about all of it. I don't care. I'm
Mm-hmm.
concerned about me and my fellowship with God and my relationship with Him. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I began to rethink the faith. Um, Either God had to make sense as a whole, or the idea of a good being became at best questionable. Either he could make sense to me, he could make it possible for me to understand him and know him. And I know there's people out there that say you can't really ever understand God. I mean, I was taught that, Campus Crusade for Christ back when I was at the University of Florida. I heard people say things like that so often, and it just, I accepted it, but it made me confused about God. It was never
Yeah.
sure where I stood, and what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do and what did please God. And so I began to rethink the faith, and the rethinking of the faith for me, um, because I had gained a background in Greek at the University of Florida and then at ORU. Um, I wasn't an expert, but I knew enough to go further. And I
Mm-hmm.
kept further, and I began to find that there were many, many things in the Greek that I'd read the Greek and I'd read the various translations, and sometimes I would think, where where did they get that translation? Because the Greek, to anybody that knows anything about Greek, it can't mean that. It's
Mhm.
just impossible. And I realized that translators were oftentimes totally baffled by what a Greek passage meant or a Greek word, and they would just make stuff up. And sometimes the having made something up was done 3, 4, 500, well, maybe not 500, but 3 or 400 years ago.
Mhm.
And I guess subsequent translators just had no better idea than what had already been proposed. So they all pile on, and this is what it says. And it's for hundreds of years, the Bible has said this. And I look at it and say, but based on all the information in the lexicons, um, and you know what a lexicon is? It's basically like a dictionary that gives you a Greek word with the English translation.
Mhm.
And they look, they kind of function like just a dictionary. And
Mhm.
and you look at some of them, and the lexicon gives you a meaning for a word, and nobody in any translation uses that meaning. They've come up with other meanings,
Mhm.
and it just had me confused. So I thought, forget the whole thing. I'm going to start from scratch. And I want God, Father, I said, Abba, I want you to teach me. You are my Father, which means you want me to know you. You delight for me to know you. And you are not hiding yourself from me. You're not hiding your knowledge from me. But there's something that's preventing me from getting um, the understanding I need.
Mhm.
So teach me. I just said to God, teach me.
Mhm.
And the things that happened to me were so astounding, and passages that and words that I had heard for years meant this or that. The light would come on. I would say, this is so obvious. How come nobody's ever seen it? How come it's not common knowledge in the translations?
Mhm.
And that's where I'm at now. I've
Mhm.
just continually finding more and more things that once God shows it to me, it not only makes sense in that particular verse, but it makes sense in all the verses. And I say, wow, this is wonderful. I mean, God began to make sense to me, and He makes tremendous sense to me now. I understand Him, not
Mhm.
perfectly, because I'm a 2 year old, maybe three.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, how old is a 3 year old man? Maybe some things I'm a little older than that, but how well does a 3 year old understand mom and dad? He's there. He's learning. She's learning,
Mhm.
but it takes a while. And God is so patient and so kind, and He just, when I get it wrong, He'll say, hey, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, but this is the way I want you to understand it. And sometimes He will have to tell me the same thing 50 times before,
Mhm.
and sometimes 50 times over 5 or 6 or 10 years.
Mhm.
But that's the way He's a father.
Mm.
Anybody listening to this who's had kids should begin to identify that if they're a good parent, then where did that come from? God. So good parents come out of God. God's the one that created them. Those that aren't good parents, there's a reason for that, and that can change. But
Mhm.
God, He he is so kind and so much fun and so loving and just so patient, and he teaches and he teaches and he teaches, and when we don't get it, he doesn't get upset. He just waits and he teaches again. And there's
Mhm.
sometimes when he'll teach us something, and frankly, I don't really get it and I don't like it. And so I just tell him, I don't get this, I don't like it, it doesn't make sense to me, and I just put it on the shelf. And I say, when I'm ready, teach me. And boy, I'll tell you what, he's right there, just always wanting for us to understand. And that's where I'm at.